Okay, we are going through the tasks. So these are we have 7 tasks. So, and you have to choose one, each group. And we think we are 20 people. We are not exactly 20 today. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17. I think there are about 2, 3 missing here. So they should be included as well. The idea is that the group should be not bigger than 4. Could be also 3, and we shouldn't have more than 5 groups. So not every group should be 3. So that's try to stick at 4 members per group. Maybe some exception if you are 1 or 2 less than 20. So there would be maybe a group of 3 also here. And the rule is the following. So each group has to send me an email. You have my email address, Willi Brammertz Consulting. So that one, the one we communicated before. So you tell me who are the members of the group. Just give me the names. So I will put it into my list. So I will know. So it's 4 or up to 4. Try to be 4. And then tell me what is your task. And first, second, third choice. Because there could be some conflict. If we still have a conflict after the third, I will come back to you. So I hope that will solve the problem. And the idea is first come, first served. So just put up your name and send it to me. Was there a question? Oh. Okay, let's go through the tasks. Maybe I should say, now you can't send yet. Maybe I have to give you a send date to start with. But at least we have to go through all the tasks. So otherwise, some people are already shooting it off now. Say after this lecture, so after 12 o'clock. So to be fair to everybody here. Okay, so task 1 is, there the target is liquidity management. And the first liquidity regulation was given out by the FSA. And you have here a paper called PS 0916. PS stands for, I think, public, something like discussion paper or that, or publication. So in PS 0916, the FSA defined what they mean by risk management, liquidity risk management. So what do you have to do? What do you have to report? And your task is to build a simple bank, a simple, let's say, regional bank with mortgages, etc. And savings, of course, the savings you must have. You could take something like Zurich Kantonalbank or St. Galler Kantonalbank or something like that, the regional bank. And then you set it up, set the analysis up to satisfy PS 0916. Now, PS 0916 is quite the paper. It's something like...
But, I will give you the requirements of this paper. I will give you the exact requirements. You don't have to read the paper.
Oh, no, let them read the paper. Let them read the paper.
Maybe I can send you another paper, a short one, okay? Mm-hmm. But, okay. But,
yeah.
Don't worry, I mean, you don't have to read the whole paper.
Yeah, let's say you don't have to understand every bit of the paper. Let's put it like that. But I think it's very good if you read once a paper like that, then you really know how that comes across. And it doesn't come across very mathematically. But you have to turn it into mathematics. Huh? So that finally your solution can only be this. Huh? So that's the task and the challenge. Huh? And we will help you. We don't let you stand in the rain. The task would be too difficult if you just do it.
I can send you another paper from BIS, which is, I think, a little bit easier.
Okay.
You can choose one of these two. They say the same things, but I think the BIS is a little bit easier.
Yeah, the BIS is the Basel paper. That is part of Basel III. And the liquidity part of Basel is very much what the FSA...
It's very similar. But I think it's a little bit easier. If you want to read it, I think you can get it.
Okay, let's settle on that one. So you have the easier part. but still you have to turn it into something operational. That's the task here. 2, again, liquidity, risk management, and here the focus is on stress testing. Of course, stress testing is also part of this FSA paper, but here we focus very much. Again, a simple bank, similar like in task 1, and you have to focus on the balancing accounts. You know, we talked already on the balancing accounts, and they get a special meaning actually. And this you have to figure out, and you have to present it to us actually. And of course, their behavior plays an important role. But not only the replication, what we discussed today, but also especially sales. Because one of the activities which you do is you can sell the liquid assets, you know, like bonds, which are in tendency long-term, but which are highly liquid. And of course, only few assets are really having this high liquidity, often only government bonds. Because in a crisis, all so-called liquid bonds become non-liquid. So we have to focus on the real liquid one. Okay? And you do that with gap analysis, survival period, and stuff like that. 3, now here the focus is, so in number 1 and 2, the focus was on the left side. We talked about this liquidity side. Now the focus goes on the right side, and especially on income here. So what we do is a net interest income simulation, again of a simplified regional Swiss bank. So, and that means you have to have now, here this is dynamic. So it's a going concern over the next few years. And of course, you have to define the business which you're doing. And dynamic simulation you didn't see yet. That will come. So far, whatever you learned was very static, actually, and only input, not yet analysis here. But that will then be dynamic analysis, which is very interesting because real life is dynamic, so that's how it happens. And you make 3 different forecasts of market conditions, and given the forecast of market conditions, of course, gives you a forecast of your interest income. And the interest income depends very much on the position which you have, long-term, short-term. And you have to explain everything, also what happens in the balancing account. And you have to do funds transfer pricing. That's also something we haven't discussed it. We will discuss that next week. But funds transfer pricing is very important if you do profitability analysis. And especially funds transfer pricing lets you separate risky income from non-risky income. So it's a very good method, which you will learn next time. Actually, that you have to apply, and then you make forecasts and you separate which of the income was risky and less risky and so on. So that would be the presentation. And whenever you have a question, please feel free to ask. Number 4, market risk analysis. Now this is static market risk analysis on a 2-currency bank. So now here the FX problem comes in, and we do it for a Polish bank. Do we have somebody from Poland? Yeah, we have Poland. Now, why do we do that? In Poland, many people finance their mortgages with Swiss francs, which was very cheap, I mean a very low rate. But it turned out to be highly risky, of course. Finally, people paid. When the Swiss franc soars, of course, then everything in zloty becomes very, very expensive. So that became then a risk for the bank who gave these loans, because such people tend to default. So you have to model a little bit this combination of this specific market risk of that Polish bank. And you will take, by the way, any annual report from a Polish bank and look into the numbers and create that bank roughly. And then you will see what happens if FX exchange rate changes. So in this case, actually, the base currency of that bank, of that model, is Polish zloty, and the second currency is the Swiss franc. These are the 2 which you have to have. You could add a third if you want, but I think keep it to 2. And then you play around. Number 5 This is now credit risk oriented. So here the task is to measure exposure and risk. Now, what the exact exposure measurements are, we will learn also in the coming weeks. Actually, next week we do already some of that. So here the task is to make a model which shows credit risk. So we do not have to. We do not only need contracts, but we also need counterparties. So you have to set up a set of counterparties, only 5, but which characterizes the whole business. So where you have the exposures, the net exposures, the collaterals, etc., where we see how the risk changes with these relationships which you build in. And of course, you have to be able to discuss and explain the exposures. You know why it's in one case high and in the other case low. And then you do a credit risk analysis, including credit value at risk. So credit value at risk is depending quite a bit on the migration matrix. So use that migration matrix to Monte Carlo calculation with it. Number 6 is also credit risk analysis. Now here the idea is stress testing. Probably you have heard about the critique on value at risk calculation, especially after the crisis. And actually what came more to the fore after the crisis was stress testing. And the stress test, the Treasury, the US Treasury did, was actually a credit risk stress test. So number 6 is very much similar to this credit risk stress test. So what you have to do, you define ratings, migration matrix, probability of defaults in there, and then you stress recovery rates and recovery periods and maybe ratings as well. And then show how much capital you need to survive such a stress. This is normally what happens in the stress testings, which have become quite famous in the recent months. Number 7, that's a typical asset liability management case, very much dynamic simulation. And in my opinion, dynamic simulations are almost the most interesting ones, because you see then how the bank evolves over time. So asset liability management is very much about the control of the whole bank. So all assets, all liabilities, of course also off balance sheet is just not included in the name. And here the focus is on conflict between market value and book value. When the management makes decisions, of course they make decisions to maximize the profit. Now profit is measured depending on which valuation system you take. And one of the valuation system, of course, is the book value. Often the bottom line, you have to maximize the profit of the next year, and that follows book value. On the other hand, we have market value. And here we want to construct a case where you have a conflict between market value and book value. That's very interesting to see how that can conflict. So you have to construct that, you present that model, and then you have to filter out the rules when, and you can do that once you have understood the model, you will see it. When are these conflicting situations even possible? So then discuss the consequences when you follow market value signals and book value signals. And also here included is a funds transfer pricing, because funds transfer pricing lets you separate this risky income, market risk depending income from the non-market risk depending income. So these are the 7 tasks which you have to, where you can choose from. And I say this is the rule, how you can apply for the cases which you want to apply. Any question? you will get much more training yet to do the jobs. At the moment, I think you are not yet in the position, but don't care. So you will really learn while doing. You will meet, of course, a lot of problems. You saw it already, the problems you had with a small UMP or a small swap. So there are always little problems, but we help you across. So that's why we continue meeting here. And we offer you also 1 week or 2 weeks before the examination. We say we are here again for one morning, and whoever likes to come, that's then free. If you need it. So we will be here and help you finalize the model. So you can really draw on our expertise. So it's not we don't want to let you like just test you how you behave if you are totally lost. Actually, we want to help you to understand. And
Saturday morning or other days that we will come here, and then whoever has a problem can come and we discuss and we make the model together. Okay? Of course, you don't have to rely on us 100%. You don't do the model, you have to do the model. Okay? But you have to put your hands into the system as well.
Yeah.
Do it well. And I think it will be fun.
yeah, it will be very inspiring because you will see the little problems and how to translate things. And that's really, and remember, that's how it works in reality.
What we do now, what we have been doing the last 4 or 5 years since this crisis started.
Just for you, to a little anecdote, I just got a call recently from South Africa. Cyril Daleski called me. So he is going to use now the software more than 10 years now. And I asked him, and he praised the software very much. He said, you made a system which lasts. Of course, it's nice to hear. And I asked him, so how did you use the system during the crisis? They said, more than once every day. Basically, they were always finding out where they stood, given the new market conditions, given the deals they had, and making plans how they could go to the next step. It's like the ice in a crisis. That's how they used it. And the only difference for what you do and them, you just work with 10, 20, or 30 contracts, and maybe with 5 or 10 counterparties. But that keeps it understandable. And if you go beyond that, you just have to trust the system. And of course, testing you always do with few, so that with the few and the more you can trust. No? But so with this, you can understand what happened.
Okay. So you need to sign out on the groups that you make and tell us until next Friday, we should have the names of the groups and
Yeah, here, let's put it earliest. So start, So we start here, you can send, what do we have today? 23rd at 12. So that's the beginning, and by, what is 23rd, 30th, 29th? 24. Oh. So that should be next Thursday. So I think by this it should be possible. Okay.
Any questions? Any comments?
You can also ask questions per email. That's open as well. Or you can ask now also, as long as we are here.